Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with James Dickman. Coming up tonight, justice to be delayed for thousands of Londoners after barristers announced they will strike indefinitely. We'll hear from opposition leader Sir Keir Starmer, former QC of course, in Walthamstow, as he refuses to be drawn into a debate over whether he will clamp down on Labour MPs joining the lawyers on the picket line. We'll also have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes, also on the way this evening. A look back at the weekend's Premier League action for the London clubs. Arsenal simply too good and too bad for West Ham fans as the Hammers now sit bottom of the Premier League table. And the immersive experience in Brent that will no doubt spark a pilgrimage for Stranger Things fans. All of that is on the way, but first this evening, let's start with this. A woman has died after a car crashed onto a tube line in West London. A warning, some may find these images distressing. A Range Rover ended up on the Piccadilly line tracks near Park Royal Underground station after colliding with a Tesla at Park Royal. At around 10 to 4 this morning, a woman aged in her 20s, believed to have been a passenger in the Range Rover, died at the scene. Two others, a man and a woman inside the 4x4, were taken to hospital, while a woman who had been with the stationary Tesla was treated at the scene. The tube service between Uxbridge and Acton Town was down today. The A40 westbound was also closed. Journeys on the London Underground fell by 90% compared to the previous week during Friday's tube strike. Transport for London said bus trips were down 84% on pre-pandemic levels, with just over 960,000 people tapping in. Tube staff from the RMT union held a 24-hour strike. Bus drivers with Unite and London United also walked out in some parts of the capital. Now, whilst the two Tory leadership candidates go toe-to-toe over the cost of living measures they may implement if they become the next Prime Minister, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has been visiting a housing development in Walthamstow today to see how families will save money on their energy bills through installation of heat-saving measures. He spoke at Juniper House in North London, and he was also questioned on his stance over whether he would allow Labour MPs to join barristers on the picket lines as they prepare a month-long strike. Sir Keir is, of course, the former Director of Public Prosecutions. Well, it comes after he sacked a Labour frontbencher, Sam Tarry, after appearing on a rail picket line last month.
Well, unless action is taken, energy bills are going to go through the roof this winter, which is why we, the Labour Party, have said we should freeze energy prices, not let those bills go up, and pay for that in part with the windfall tax on oil and gas companies are making huge profits. Alongside that, we need a national mission to insulate homes. That's a longer term issue. I called for that a year ago now. If the government had done that, we'd have the best part of 2 million homes insulated. This morning I've been seeing next generation homes with insulation built into them. So we need to freeze prices for this winter, but we need a longer term answer. That's insulating homes, a national mission. Instead of a national mission, we've got a zombie government, and that's the root of the problem. Well, look, I quite understand, whether it's barristers or others, why people and how people are struggling to make ends meet. And what I want to see is the government to recognise that, do something about it, resolve these issues in whichever sector they are, but also have bigger picture answers. The answer for many people in terms of bills is things like freezing the energy prices, because that's going to drive people even further into problems with their bills this winter. So I want to see the government step in and actually help resolve these issues. Instead of that, we've got a government doing absolutely nothing.
Sir Keir Starmer in Walthamstow there. More details on those barrister strikes after the break. Now, some other stories from the capital today. Former Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone has pleaded not guilty to a charge of fraud over an alleged failure to declare £400 million of overseas assets to the government. The 91-year-old appeared at Westminster Magistrates today. The charge against the billionaire, whose address is listed in Knightsbridge, was authorised by the Crown Prosecution Service last month after an investigation by the HMRC, which said the probe had been complex and worldwide. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are set to leave London to put their children first, they say. Kensington Palace have said that Prince William and Kate are to embark on the next major phase of their life by moving their family to Windsor, with Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis all starting at the same new school. They will set up home in Adelaide Cottage in Windsor's Home Park, and the children will join the co-educational private Lambrook School near Ascot in Berkshire in September. Psychiatrists in London charge 45% more than the rest of the UK, with patients forking out around £100 more on average. That's according to some new research. New data shows the average cost for an initial consultation with a psychiatrist in the capital is £400, with a follow-up appointment costing £200. Excluding London, the national average is £275 for an initial consultation, then £165 for the follow-up, according to My Tribe Insurance. The survey also found that it's 27% more to see a medical consultant in London compared to the rest of the UK. Medical consultants include physiotherapists, orthodontists and cardiologists. Another quick headline before the weather. The Lion King, Frozen, Pretty Woman and the Book of Mormon are all part of an annual 2-week campaign offering low prices for the biggest West End shows. Almost 60 critically acclaimed performances have signed up to London Theatre Week, which hopes to empower audiences to enjoy the West End and support live theatre as well. Returning to the campaign this year are classic hit shows including The Phantom of the Opera, Back to the Future and Les Miserables. Theatre fans can buy tickets for as little as £15 during the 2-week campaign, which launches today until the 4th of September. Quick check on the weather for you now. Cloud cover sticking around for the time being. Staying in the high teens overnight, average temperatures of around 25 degrees tomorrow, with limited sunshine. Looking ahead to Wednesday, some sunny spells in the afternoon. Thursday looking brighter again, highs of around 26 degrees. Now, just this before the break, a 17-year-old has made his first return to England today, touching down at London's Biggin Hill Airport. Mac Rutherford is aiming to beat the Guinness World Record for the youngest person to fly around the world solo in a small plane, currently held by another Briton, Travis Ludlow, who completed the feat aged 18 years and 150 days. Well, he made the stop at the base in the southeast of the capital and described some particularly hairy moments he's had along the way.
Absolutely incredible. It's been going on for about 5 months now. It's been a long journey, but it's getting to the end now. And yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. It's taken me all over the world and places I've never been to before. And with this journey, I'm also trying to show that young people can make a difference. You don't have to be 18 to do something special. Just follow your dreams and they'll eventually come true. Both my parents are pilots, and basically that's how my passion grew. I would fly with my parents. And basically about 10 or 11 years old, I just kept flying more and more, and I really loved it. And so my passion grew and grew. And then when I was 14, I was like, yeah, I'll work for my license, and got it at 15. Even though I might be over the ocean and there's not a huge amount to do, you're always making sure that the engine is doing fine, you have enough fuel, making sure everything's doing okay. And even if everything is completely fine, you can just look outside, because I'm not actually flying that high. So there's always something I can see, even if it's just the ocean. I think the hardest moment would definitely be the Pacific flight. So after 10 hours, I arrived on this small island. It was starting to get dark, so I landed in this island, and it was quite low clouds. It was raining. It was getting quite dark. No lights on the runway, and it's actually an uninhabited island. So if anything would have gone wrong, I would be on my own on that island. So really important that nothing went wrong. So I landed there, and then I just had to sleep in a small shed on the side of the runway because it's uninhabited. That's completely abandoned for over 10 years. You can go wherever you want to go. You can fly high, fly low, you can go left, right. You're not limited like you might be in a car by roads. You can just go anywhere, and that's something that's very rare in other aspects of life. In the moment itself, you're busy, you're thinking of the next thing. You're not scared exactly. You just keep pushing forwards, you keep solving the next problem, keep going, and eventually you have time to look back afterwards.
There you go. Best of luck to Mac along the next phases of his attempt. Right, we're heading into a short break now, but stay with us, as we'll hear about how children today spend half the amount of time outdoors as their parents did. What do we need to do to get children out and about?
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just take a look at some other stories affecting Londoners today. Barristers have voted to go on an indefinite, uninterrupted strike in England and Wales from next month. The walkout by members of the Criminal Bar Association will begin on the 5th of September. Until now, members have been striking on alternate weeks in a dispute with the government over pay, working conditions and legal aid funding. The strikes are expected to delay thousands of cases, leaving victims and the accused waiting longer for justice. Cineworld has confirmed that it is considering filing for bankruptcy in the US as the cinema chain continues to struggle with $5 billion worth of debt. The company, which also owns the Picture House chain, said it was examining options for how to restructure the business. Shares in Cineworld bounced back today after plunging 60% on Friday. The firm, which employs more than 28,000 people globally, said its cinemas remain open for business. And GPs will start prescribing walking and cycling as part of a trial in England to help improve mental and physical well-being and tackle health disparities. The Department for Transport announced that £12.7 million has been given to 11 local authorities to fund a pilot social prescriptions, as well as projects like adult cycle training, walking groups and free bike loans. Prescriptions will also include wheeling for wheelchair or mobility scooter users, the department has said. Right, let's turn our attention to this week's Premier League football action from over the weekend by looking at the London clubs. Doogie Critchley from Football Daily joined me a bit earlier to take us through the highs and the lows. Perhaps a few Arsenal fans maybe predicted it. They have got off to an incredible start to their season.
Yeah, they have indeed. 3 wins out of 3, the only side in the league with the perfect record. They've scored 9, just conceded the solitary 2. I will say they've had a slightly fortuitous run of fixtures. Crystal Palace away is a testing game, but Leicester City are all at 6s and 7s at the moment. They're not able to play some of their best players due to links away. And then Bournemouth, many people expect them to struggle this season. But having said that, the way their new signings are integrating so quickly into that 11 with Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus and William Saliba, who they've had on their books since 2019, but finally getting a run in the Premier League. It's really pretty impressive. And Gabriel Jesus in particular, probably the form player in the division right now. Every facet of his game is just working so well. His touch, his physicality, his finishing, etc. And he was excellent again at the weekend. And 2 goals for Martin Odegaard, which is probably the area of his game that he most needed to improve upon this season. So, as you say, really excellent start for Arteta and Arsenal, and they'll just want to keep this momentum going.
Yeah, Gabriel Jesus doing absolute wonders for my fantasy team. You mentioned their form. The amount of the fixtures that they've had. They've got Fulham next. It's another, no disrespect to Fulham, but another less tricky game than the likes of Man City and Liverpool, etc. So they really have got a really good run to start with. Does that mean, do you think, that some people are saying, they could win the league, but perhaps, later down the line, it's gonna change a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you do expect Liverpool to get up to speed. Man City had a disappointing result yesterday, dropping some points away at Newcastle. But I think most Arsenal fans would just be delighted with a solid top 4 finish this year, getting back in the Champions League after such a long absence and finishing, 8th and then 5th last year, and maybe a cup run as well. I think that'd be very good for Arsenal. They probably don't have the depth to challenge for a title, but if they can end up as the top side in London, I think that'd be a massive achievement.
Yeah. Well, moving away from North London to the West, we have a new London derby, and it was played on Saturday. Fulham versus Brentford, a new West London derby. It got off to a very exciting start, and it did not disappoint, did it?
Yeah, it was an absolute thriller. Mitrovic scoring the final few minutes to seal a 3-2 win for Fulham. Fulham are unbeaten on their return to the Premier League, looking a hell of a lot better under Marco Silva than they did under Scott Parker in their last time in the Premier League. And Alexander Mitrovic, answering all those doubters, he said he couldn't hack it in the Premier League. He started exceptionally well. Could have even been better if he tucked away that penalty in the second match week as well. But yeah, this is a derby that's sort of under the radar, got quite a lot of animosity towards it. It was Fulham that beat Brentford when they last got promoted in the playoffs in 2020, I believe. So yeah, this one definitely had a lot of spice on it and ended up being a thoroughly entertaining game for everyone at Craven Cottage. Yeah,
well, we look forward to the return game at Brentford later on in the year, or season, shall I say. Let's move down to the failures of the weekend, and we'll start with perhaps the biggest failure so far this season, West Ham United, who sit bottom of the league, 0 points, and not just that, 0 goals.
Yeah, not looking too great for West Ham at the moment, although I would say that they probably won't end the weekend bottom if Man United, lose to Liverpool tonight and lose heavily as many people expect them to. But it's not been a great start for David Moyes' side. He hasn't integrated those new signings as of yet. Thilo Kehrer, one of those new signings, did start at the weekend, but gave away a penalty early doors, and we haven't seen anything really of note from Gianluca Scamacca as of yet, or Maxwell Cornet as well. And there are some question marks about whether that midfield duo of Souček and Rice are really performing at their best at the moment as well. A lot of West Ham fans that I know sort of criticising Souček on the ball and his ability there. But this was a really troubling defensive display, really, but rather than anything else against Brighton, who I will say are a good side. They've already beaten Man United. They've drawn against Newcastle, who got a draw against Man City yesterday. So there's no disrespect in losing to Brighton. They are a good side, but this is a really troubling start for Moyes' side. You would expect them to improve as the season goes on, though, and I do still expect them to finish around the top 10.
Yeah. Well, moving to Chelsea, who haven't had a particularly poor start to the season, but there was some surprise on the weekend, a real giant killing when they travelled to Leeds.
Yeah, Leeds was kicking off. Ellen Road in full voice for this one. And Chelsea were just really tepid in attack and weak defensively as well. Edouard Mendy, a mistake you can't really legislate for. The goalkeeper just giving away the ball for the first for Brendan Aronson, and then Harrison and Rodrigo making them suffer even more in the second half as well. And even worse was to come when Kalidou Koulibaly was sent off as well, who started the season exceptionally well, got a goal against Spurs in their previous game, but he'll now miss the next fixture having been given 2 yellow cards. And you just feel that with Azpilicueta and Alonso's future a bit uncertain, some injuries in midfield and a real lack of strikers, things are looking quite difficult for Chelsea this season. I still think they'll finish in the top 4, but they do need to get their best players performing at their best again soon, because it was a really troubling result, I would say.
And it would be remiss of me not to mention them, Doogie, for any Crystal Palace fans watching. They have slyly got off to quite a good start as well. Patrick Vieira proving his worth once again in the first 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely excellent, to be honest. I thought they were slightly unlucky with their finishing position last season, to be honest. I thought their performances were probably better than their results at points. But this has been an excellent start to the season, a comfortable win against Aston Villa at the weekend, who aren't performing particularly well at the moment. But Wilfried Zaha's back to his best, I think. Ebere Eze as well has come in and instantly replaced the impact lost from Conor Gallagher as well. And they're linked with Ismaila Sarr as well, the Watford winger, this morning as well. So things are looking very, very good for Crystal Palace. They've already got a draw against Anfield, confidently dispatched Aston Villa, and actually tested Arsenal in their opening game as well. Probably gave Arsenal their hardest game of the season so far. So yeah, I think Palace fans can be very, very excited about what their season's going to bring.
There you go, Doogie Critchley from Football Daily there, bottom of the league. No place for West Ham United, I don't think. Right, to most, it's known as the great outdoors, but recent data found by the National Trust tells us that children today spend half the amount of time outdoors as their parents did. Well, now, a government survey also found that even before the COVID pandemic, 1 in 10 people go a year without spending time in an outdoor space, such as a park, forest or beach. Well, we spoke to Tom Partridge, an adventure expert from Alexandra Palace. Go ape about how we can tackle the issue and get more kids keeping active in outdoor spaces.
The recent findings have found that kids have spent less time outside and more time in front of a square screen. We want to get people outside and to enjoy their local spaces and to enjoy their local environments and get outside. Back then, there was less technology, and there was a bigger emphasis on getting outside and being social with your friends. Now, that whole social sort of circle has moved inside into the 4-wall screen that you have in the palm of your hand. But nowadays, we want to encourage people to get outside and to enjoy that even more. From what I've seen recently, yes, there has definitely been an influx of people coming to our local parks and to here at Alexandra Palace to get outside and to enjoy the beautiful weather and to get outside. If we didn't take action to get people outside even more, I think that we would find that the next generation growing up would lack some social skills, which are key when talking to people face to face and being in new situations. The way we do that, I think we put a bigger emphasis on getting outside, into the local park, into your local space. I think it's to go forwards. I think it's a case of encouraging the use of local parks, encouraging people to go on a bike ride, to go on a walk. You don't necessarily need to go to a park to get outside and go for a walk. I think the first step in getting outside is finding an outdoor space that you really enjoy being in. For me, I might be a little bit biased, but I do genuinely enjoy going and standing and sitting, looking over London at Alexandra Palace. And yeah, it's genuinely one of my favourite places to be. And I think it is about finding your favourite space to enjoy outside and finding what you like about that local space. I think that is the first step. Find somewhere that you're comfortable, find somewhere that you can, just about finding somewhere that you're comfortable.
Tom Partridge, an adventure expert from Alexandra Palace. Go Ape there. Right, you're watching London Live News with James Dickman. A reminder of our top stories coming up after the break, but also on the way. The French teacher that has gone viral online on why it's a real shame that us Londoners aren't fussed about learning new languages.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just have a recap of some of our main stories we've been running today, starting with this. A woman has died after a car crashed onto a tube line in West London. A warning, some may find these images distressing. A Range Rover ended up on the Piccadilly line tracks near Park Royal Underground station after colliding with a Tesla at the station at around 10 to 4 this morning. A woman aged in her 20s, believed to have been a passenger in the Range Rover, died at the scene. Two others, a man and a woman inside the 4x4, were taken to hospital, while a woman who had been with the stationary Tesla was treated at the scene. The tube service between Uxbridge and Acton was down today. The A40 westbound was also closed. Journeys on the London Underground fell by 90% compared to the previous week during Friday's tube strike. Transport for London said bus trips were down 84% on pre-pandemic levels, with just over 960,000 people tapping in. Tube staff from the RMT union held a 24-hour strike. Bus drivers with Unite and London United also walked out in some parts of the capital. Now, whilst the two Tory leadership candidates go toe-to-toe over the cost of living measures they may implement if they become the next Prime Minister, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has been visiting a housing development in Walthamstow today to see how families will save money on their energy bills through installation of heat-saving measures. He spoke at Juniper House in North London, and he was also questioned on his stance over whether he would allow Labour MPs to join barristers on the picket lines as they prepare a month-long strike. Sir Keir is, of course, the former Director of Public Prosecutions, where it comes after he sacked a Labour frontbencher, Sam Tarry, after appearing on a rail picket line last month.
Well, unless action is taken, energy bills are going to go through the roof this winter, which is why we, the Labour Party, have said we should freeze energy prices, not let those bills go up, and pay for that in part with the windfall tax on oil and gas companies are making huge profits. Alongside that, we need a national mission to insulate homes. That's a longer term issue. I called for that a year ago now. If the government had done that, we'd have the best part of 2 million homes insulated. This morning I've been seeing next generation homes with insulation built into them. So we need to freeze prices for this winter, but we need a longer term answer. That's insulating homes, a national mission. Instead of a national mission, we've got a zombie government, and that's the root of the problem. Well, look, I quite understand, whether it's barristers or others, why people and how people are struggling to make ends meet. And what I want to see is the government to recognise that, do something about it, resolve these issues in whichever sector they are, but also have bigger picture answers. The answer for many people in terms of bills is things like freezing the energy prices, because that's going to drive people even further into problems with their bills this winter. So I want to see the government step in and actually help resolve these issues. Instead of that, we've got a government doing absolutely nothing.
Now, we might all like to have a go at the odd phrase on holiday, but new research shows Brits are the worst in Europe at learning a new language. Stats have revealed that over half of adults in London only want to learn enough of a language to get by, and even a higher number regret quitting. Well, Londoner Alexa has made a career out of teaching people French with millions of followers online. She told Alicia why she thinks Londoners aren't picking up new languages and gave her some tips on how to get back into learning French.
Alexa, c'est moi. Il fait beau and probably hot as well. So, il fait chaud. Hi, bonjour, should I say. I think, unfortunately, the stage of the process where people give up is at the very beginning, which is a shame. So we found in our research that actually very quickly on, people want to learn the language. As a matter of fact, in London, 45 people of London, Londoners want to learn the language, but very quickly give up. And as a matter of fact, they find it too hard. So past the basic point, that's when they give up.
I'm guilty of this myself. What's the best way to practice? What's your advice to people that are finding it a little bit too hard just when they get to that next level of maybe trying to get it into conversation rather than just a few phrases?
I think that overall, by experience, you need to have a very clear objective in order to motivate yourself to keep going. So it's easy to say, well, I just need the basics. And most most people just want to learn, the basics just to get by if they go traveling and so on. But if you have a very clear objective, such as, I would like to take this exam. An exam is a very clear objective, actually, because you start from the beginning and you want to reach a certain point, but it doesn't have to be an exam, but it can be just for your own, self, I think my advice is have a clear objective and a clear target. Whatever your objective is, then you set mini targets throughout the day. So you throughout your time as a learner. So it could be you start with the basics. I'm going to reach the basics in 1 month. I'm going to do that, and then reach another target. So in the next month, I would have learned the present tense, for example, in French, in all capacities and so on. So set yourself one big objective and mini targets.
Did you notice an uptake in people learning the language after or during the pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. We did. We were already quite popular on YouTube, but we became even more popular, during this, time. People suddenly had more time, and I think it helped them, focus on something different, because it was quite a gloomy moment. So they started learning skills. It could be a language, but it could be woodworking or wood making or puppet making or whatever it was. But we found that there was definitely an uptake on learning a language at that moment.
French like this. Bonjour et bienvenue à Learn French with Alexa.
YouTube, that's how you teach. How did it all start? Because you've been going for some time now and you have got millions of people following you on there.
We do have a lot of followers on, all the social media platforms, but it started with me being a teacher in primary school. So I had my own company, and we were teaching children, actually, reception, key stage 1, key stage 2 children, and even nursery children. And then as my company progressed, we had podcasting. And this is what led me to become a YouTuber. So the podcast, was there. We decided to record on podcast my first lesson of my course, because as well as being a YouTuber, we do have courses, that we sell online. But and that's how it started. So we have the podcasting, and then my business partner said, there is this new platform, YouTube, and I think it would be interesting if we filmed you doing your podcast, which we uploaded on YouTube. and the rest is history. You know, we have millions now of followers. So yeah.
How does it feel knowing that so many people are watching?
Well, it doesn't feel much to me because, well, I'm not performing in front of millions of people. I'm performing in my little studio, and as long as they're happy with the content we create, overall, I'm happy. It is, it is a bit odd, I must admit, but
And also, I imagine meeting followers who say that you've taught them the language.
I know it happens quite a few times. Like it has happened in odd places you cannot imagine, that you will ever meet a fan. But it brings me joy to think that I have made a difference. It really does. It brings me warmth that actually I manage to reach them in some ways, especially if they had an objective to learn in order to get a job. It is so important.
Alicia avec la prof de français Alexa. Alicia with French teacher Alexa there with some important points. Right, still to come. One for Stranger Things fans. Immerse yourself in the world of the Netflix horror with a new experience in the capital. We'll show you around.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to the final part of this evening's programme. Now, after a successful run in the West End, the producers of a magic and illusion show have decided to take over a venue with their brand of entertainment. Wonderville is going to be offering a slightly different night out, with the presentation of 5 acts doing magic, cabaret and much more. Audiences will have the chance to experience a range of performances in the new purpose-built cabaret venue in Piccadilly Circus. Well, Alicia has been hearing more from the manager of the venue, Sean Sweeney.
It is a bit of a job. I mean, I think what was fantastic is that the producers that I'm working for in this, they'd already done the Wonderville show at the Palace Theatre, and so when things reopened after COVID, certain West End shows didn't go back straight away, and the theatre owners, NIMAX, were very, very keen to get things running in the West End, real heroes of mine. And so what they did is they got some young producers to put together some sort of shorter run shows, and the guys came up with this idea about doing this Wonderville show, bringing together, a lot of this sort of magic that had been seen in things like Britain's Got Talent and so forth. So where it was great with starting this venue is we sort of had the kind of the product. We had, we knew where we wanted to take the talent that we wanted on the stage. And then what it was all about then was creating kind of magical space around that. So what we've got is we've got a space here that feels like it's, in a sense, it's like a maybe slightly run-down sort of turn of the last century variety house which you've rediscovered. Now, obviously, doing that in quite a big venue in the West End is quite a big undertaking. It's taken us about 6 to 8 weeks to do that, which everyone's quite surprised at how quick we've been able to do it. But, us theatre people, we're used to putting up shows pretty quickly. So we've really been able to put it together really, really quickly. And it's just really, really exciting. It's such a great location space, and it's such a great space. And it was so unfortunate that obviously because of COVID, it was empty.
So what kinds of performances can people expect to look forward to seeing if they come along?
Yeah, so each night, what we structured it kind of like 2 halves. So, like a conventional show in that sense. We have a compere, so we've got some fantastic people bringing together the kind of really cream of kind of the West End cabaret scene. We had a fantastically funny entertainer last night called Chastity Belt, who absolutely took the roof off here. So they will do a number of songs that introduce the acts, interweaving throughout the show. And then there's 3 to 4 acts, so it's 2 halves. You'll get each act will do 2 different things, so you'll kind of get a 2-hour show, as it were, but of a variety. So it could be circus acts, it could be mind tricks, it could be illusionists. We had an amazing illusionist last night, the guys from Matrix, and also, and we're really, really lucky here because it's quite a high ceiling, so we are able to do aerial acts as well. So that's really, really exciting, which sort of happens above the audience's head, which they love.
Amazing, really doing something that we haven't seen done anywhere else in the West End before. How groundbreaking is this in terms of, we might see comedy clubs, places like that putting on these kinds of opportunities for people, but yeah, how important is it to give performers a chance to do this?
There's 2 bits to that question, actually, to be honest with you, because one thing that we're very keen on here is about, there are certain other spaces in London that do this, but it's at a very, very premium price, okay? What we're about here is that, things are a little bit difficult for a lot of people at the moment, and what we hear is about, our ticket is between £39.50 and £49.50. Our drinks here are kind of pub prices, that sort of kind of thing. So what we're about in many ways is actually offering a really fantastic full night out, a great set of variety acts, but also a good sort of value for money as well. So as opposed to maybe some of the other venues in the West End that offer something of a sort of similar experience, but we're talking of an awful lot more for the ticket price, with Wonderville you can come in and actually, essentially you can have your full night out, including food and drinks, for the same as you pay, just for a top price ticket, for example, for a West End show. Yeah.
And in terms of the opportunities that this is giving to London performers, you speak about the struggle with the pandemic and having all that time not being able to be on stage. Yeah. How great is this an opportunity to get lots of people a chance to be seen and lots of groups a chance to be seen?
Of course. I mean, it is absolutely about that, because we've got these extraordinary sort of cabaret and variety acts in London. And actually, I should say just not just London as well, because people are coming. I think that what's really interesting for me is the fact is that people are now coming from all over the country wanting to take part, because we've got this amazing new venue in London that is just geared up for this kind of thing. So I think the guys yesterday actually drove all the way up from Cornwall to do their act. So, But I think that's really, really important. And what's, London's live performances is something that separates us out from many other cities and the quality of them. But actually creating a new space to actually bring together the cream of those at reasonable prices for people, I think is something that's really, really groundbreaking. And also banging them, we're banging the West End. We're on the Haymarket, So it's not that it's not that it's sort of stuck off somewhere else in London. So yeah, really, really exciting to be able to do something groundbreaking in the sense of some of the immersive elements we've got, but also to be able to offer a really good value night out to customers as well.
Now, to another venue in London with a special spectacle on show. If you're a fan of the hit show Stranger Things, then buckle up. If you're not, then this piece is still a treat for the eyes. A new experience in the capital takes you on an adventure headfirst into the horror series. The 1-hour immersive journey features a brand new Stranger Things storyline and explores an 80s-themed mixtape medley. Well, the programme has become one of Netflix's biggest hits, and it follows a group of schoolchildren in 80s Indiana who discover a portal to an alternate dimension called the Upside Down.
We are here at the Stranger Things experience in London at the Troubadour in Brent Cross. We were really excited to bring the Stranger Things experience to London. It is just a culturally rich place. It's a huge community of people who are already excited about immersive experiences and people who love the theater here. So we were really excited to bring this type of experience that ties back to one of our biggest shows. So when people come to the Stranger Things experience, they are going into a fully immersive adventure throughout iconic areas of Hawkins. The guests will be treated to a sleep study here at the Hawkins National Lab. And after they go through and explore all of the different areas of the lab and help fight off the perils that are threatening our world, they're treated to a really great experience where they have an 80s scene of all of the iconic places out of the Stranger Things show. And so they can enjoy food and beverage. We've got our Upside Bar, which is our first Stranger Things themed bar. We have Scoops Ahoy, and of course Surfer Boy Pizza. You can also enjoy games at Palace Arcade, and of course take as many photos as you like. So the overall experience is very true to the Stranger Things overall thematics. There's themes of friendship and heroism and fighting off threats that are threatening the town. We worked really closely with the Duffer Brothers to come up with a storyline that fit very much in the Stranger Things world, so it'll be recognizable by fans from the show. We absolutely encourage people to dress up for the experience. It is not required to have a good time. However, we see lots of folks who come in 80s gear or their favorite costume from the characters in the show, and we totally love when people want to participate in that manner. It's a ton of fun, especially when you get to see everybody at the end of the experience where everyone gets to mingle with each other and check out the best dressed in Hawkins. We felt that it was really important to bring this immersive experience to London because there already is this great appetite for, like we said, live theater and immersive experiences here. For us, bringing the Stranger Things world was really important because it already is something that fans love when they are able to watch the series, and we wanted to really bring that experience to them live in a place that they could explore for themselves and be in an episode where they get to be the hero. So one of the most fun and challenging things that we have to go through is the process of picking the shows that we want to create an experience out of. What we find is that there's got to be a world already that people are excited about. There already has to be sort of that existing fan base, and there's got to be really great thematics that work really well for live experience. We find that Stranger Things has all of those things, and so it was a shoo-in, so to speak, that we wanted to make sure that Stranger Things had its own sort of immersive experience. And we pulled in all of those really amazing elements from the show that were able to really put together this experience here that we've got in London. The Stranger Things experience can be a little bit scary. You are here to fight off the evil perils, of course, that are threatening the town. We do recommend it for, children 13 and up. We know that there are families that are watching this together with children younger than that age. However, we do see a ton of families that are coming to the experience. We hope that people have an amazing time while they're here and that they're able to leave with the memories of having a great experience with their family or their friends as they come. We have tons of goodies that they can also leave with if they'd like, but really we're here to just make sure that fans are having the best experience and that they were really able to immerse themselves in the world of Stranger Things.
There you go, that opens now. To get your tickets for that's at Troubadour Brent Cross Studios. Now let's take a quick look at the weather before we leave you this evening. Cloud cover will be sticking around for the time being, staying in the high teens overnight. Average temperatures of around 25 degrees tomorrow with limited sunshine. Looking ahead to Wednesday, some sunny spells in the afternoon perhaps, but pretty grey for the next few days. Thursday is looking brighter again with highs of around 26. Right, that is all from us this evening. I'll be back tomorrow with more news from across London at 6 p.m. Until then, you can catch the latest across our social media channels at London Live. From me and the rest of the team, though, have a lovely evening.